welcome to week 2. The sound is good now. Good. Week 2, episode 7. Episode 7. I'm just typing it in. Episode 7 of the Read With Me series. Good morning. We thank God for a new day. How are you today? Our usual guests. I am Sukri, always joining us. Thank you so much for joining this morning. Welcome. And we are reading this book, The Joy of Marriage, God's Way. Just in case you're joining in for the first time, episode 7. Go back and watch every other episode that we have talked about so far, so that you can be on the same page and the same pace that we're all in. So we are running through it quite fast anyways. So we'll be talking about spiritual intimacy in our relationship, and especially in our marriages. So I'm just going to dive right into it because of our time. So, and we hope that we'll be getting something today, and we'll go back and actually reflect on everything that we'll be learning. Okay, so yesterday we finished on safety and honesty as the main ingredients that we need to build our spiritual intimacy in our relationships. So any day that we're going to pick, I'm going to pick a day for Q&A session, probably on a weekend when people will be available, because I know that around this time a lot of people will be busy. So maybe at the weekend, probably weekend morning or something, or maybe Saturday morning or something like that. But we can I can schedule that for a Q&A session, and I'll communicate anyway via the IG posts or stories and flyers. So stay tuned. Okay, so today we'll be talking about the barriers to spiritual intimacy. The barriers to spiritual intimacy. And it says, why is spiritual intimacy so difficult to achieve? Why? Why is it so difficult to achieve? Even though we're talking about spiritual intimacy in our relationships, how many relationships actually have spiritual intimacy? How many marriages actually have spiritual intimacy? And why is it so difficult to achieve this in all of our relationships? While the list is endless, let me give you a couple of key barriers and roadblocks that prevent us from being on the spiritual intimacy track. Number 1, stress. One of the roadblocks is the stressors of everyday life. And you can just imagine, people that live in Africa or, in a very, very stressful country, like everything will stress you out. The government will stress you out, because you have to provide basic amenities for yourself. The roads are not working properly, electricity, water, different things like that. Look at all the stressors of everyday single life. By the time you deal with all of that, I don't know if we're emotionally balanced to even say, you want to develop spiritual intimacy with anybody, because you're just so stressed out. So, and she said, instead, Judith Wallerstein and Sandra Blakely, in their book, The Good Marriage, say, in today's marriages, in which people work long hours, travel extensively, and juggle careers with family, more forces tug at the relationship than ever before. Modern marriages are battered by the demands of a workplace, as well as ease, by changing values, by anxiety about making ends meet each month, by geographical moves, by unemployment and recession. By the vicissitudes of childcare, and by a host of other issues. So these are current realities that we need to start, thinking about even in our relationship, and how that can put a strain in our relationships and in the dynamics of the health of our relationships. These are real issues. And how do we, we need to start, developing skills on how to handle and manage all of these challenges. So he says that when you are stressed, all your energies are on protecting yourself and solving problems that created the stress in the first place. So there's little energy left to spend time with and develop a deep relationship with your spouse and with your Lord. Wow. Controlling or managing everyday stress is a problem that everyone needs to work on. This is so true. Controlling or managing everyday stress is a problem that everyone needs to work on. Even for parents also, it can be so stressful, taking care of children, catering for them, thinking about what they need before you even think about yours. Like most of the time, the energy is even gone thinking about them and catering for them before you actually take care of yourself, before you even think of your spouse. So, we need a lot of wisdom and organization to be able to manage the everyday stress, to be honest, to manage the everyday stress, in order for us to build spiritual intimacy in our relationships. So as I'm going along, if you have any comments, put it in the comment section. If you have any questions also, put it in the comment section, so that we can also hear your thoughts and views on what we're talking about, what we're reading about. The second stressor is time. We just have no time to give. If you are like me, you're saying amen. Go girl. Richard Swenson, in his book Margin, states that the average couple today spends as little as 4 minutes a day in meaningful couple time. It's hard to balance all the demands like a job, children, and a spouse. So if you're thinking about marriage, in the literal sense of it, I don't know, like when people are you're dating, you have all the time to talk to each other, be on the phone for hours and hours, talking to each other, blah, 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 blah. But when in marriage, somebody's got to go to work, somebody's got to take care of the kids, things needs to be done, and the whole things, the reality sets in. And then that's put a strain, and people will now looking like, there are lapses in the relationship, because we didn't properly plan on how to handle all of these everyday stresses. Can you still hear me? I hope the volume is okay. Can you still hear me? Please put it in the comment section. And we don't arm ourselves enough to be able to know how to manage all of these stresses of the everyday life and how to balance it out. So it says that like my mother told me when I was a teenager. Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you so much. Like my mother told me when I was a teenager, if you don't make time now for the Lord, you will never have time later on. Like if you're single and you're watching this, if you don't make time now, if you're a youth also, you're watching this, if you don't make time now for the Lord, you will never have time later, because by the time you get into relationship, you get into marriage, you start having children and everything, there'll be so many things that will be demanding for your time. It says that we need to make time with our spouse and time with God a high priority every day. A high priority every day. I'm also learning, so I hope you're all learning too. Okay, the third stressor is satanic assault. Satanic assault. Ephesians 6 verse 12 says, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." So we are in a spiritual warfare, and our enemy is Satan. So I believe Satan's key targets are your marriage and your relationship with the Lord. Let us let that sink in. Satan's key targets are your marriage and your relationship with the Lord. Now, why? Why is that so? She said, I believe it is because we oversee God's sacred institution, which is the family. We oversee God's sacred institution, which is the family. So the devil wants to attack it, the family, like never before. It's a strategy, and the devil is very strategic. It's very strategic. It even starts from the youth, from young people. To if you want to mess up the young person's family in the future, you start from the youth. Start putting a lot of things in there, a lot of yoke in their mind, a lot of wrong ideologies, a lot of stuff that will mess up the person's home in the future, that will not make the person have a godly home. Attack them, get them entangled with wrong company, get them entangled with a lot of vices, and the person will now go. Before you know it, nothing. Oh my God. But when we are armed with all of this information, we are more wiser than the devil. May God help us. The fourth point that the barriers to spiritual intimacy here, the fourth one is selfishness. Selfishness. See, none of us has mastered the unselfish life. No matter how much we love and are committed to our spouse, selfishness arises all too often. This only communicates to our spouse that he is alone and that he needs to take care of himself. Evil's intent has always been to get us to focus on self and to believe that God is not even there for us. Whoa. Such thinking and behaving destroys our love life with God and our love life with our spouse. Selfishness. From experience, nobody can have a wholesome marriage with a selfish person. If all you do is think about yourself, me, myself, and I, what will make me happy, it is about me. You don't want to sacrifice for anybody. You don't want to inconvenience yourself for anybody. Everything is about you. It must be you. You. It can never work. It can never work. And that kind of mindset, even as a single now, as a young person, if you are watching this also, I watched a message once and they said, what are the thresholds of marital life? Number one threshold is that you must be somebody that is selfless. If you know that you want to plan to marry in the future, you must be somebody that is selfless, even as a person. You must develop selflessness, because marital life is a life of sacrifice and loving somebody else. So if you are selfish, don't even bother thinking of marriage. Just stay. If you don't want to be selfless, just stay. Good advice. Stay. Now I have a comment here from my Sukre. It says, I perceive it can be dicey when we attribute bad marriages to the devil. Most of the time, what the devil wants is worship. So if a marriage is giving worship to the devil, then will be if a marriage is giving worship to the devil, they will be happy. Then another comment here says, a selfish person cannot please others. You're right. Yes. We perceive that it can be dicey. We attribute bad marriages to the devil. It's not that one is entirely attributing bad marriages to the devil, because it takes a whole lot of things. The devil will be, I get you. Like, it takes a whole lot of things for us to have bad marriages. It's like a whole mixture of a whole lot of things. It's a summation of a lot of things, But we cannot deny the fact that also spiritually sometimes things can also happen to make a marriage bad, to make it not work. So as spiritual beings also, we do not deny that fact. It's not that we are glorifying the devil, no, but we are not being ignorant also that it can actually happen. Look at the scripture that we wrote here. We said that our struggle is not actually against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, rulers of darkness, of this world. So the devil also can actually manipulate people, do a whole lot of things to make a marriage not work. So that's a valid point right there. But at the same time, it's not excusing our own responsibility on what we need to do, to make it work at the same time. So thank you so much for your comments. I am so great. So now it says here, it says that such thinking and behaving destroys our love life with God and our love life with our spouse. Okay, so that is the fourth one now. Barrier to spiritual intimacy: selfishness. The fifth barrier to intimacy is traditions. It says we all grow up with different ways of worshiping God. In some homes, spiritual intimacy was very important, and our parents modeled that for us. In others, it was not. So regardless of, parental influence and traditions, go deep. So it says bringing together two different ways of seeking out God can be quite challenging. So what this one is saying is that traditions also can affect our spiritual intimacy in our relationship, because somebody might come from a home whereby we only just go to church on Sunday and that is it. It's not about even putting anything they say there in practice or doing anything, as long as you actually go to church on Sunday, you're kind of okay. And there's nothing much to it. Meanwhile, somebody else can come from another home whereby they might not be as that religious, but they actually use the principle of the word, to practicalize what they're actually reading. So all of these people now, if person A and person B now come together, they're going to collide and have a lot of collision because of their different ideologies and different, traditions and culture that they kind of were brought up in. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that also can affect our spiritual intimacy in our relationships, So bringing together two different ways of seeking out God can be quite challenging. So I feel very blessed to have been brought up. This is the author is saying this now, that she feels very blessed to have been brought up in a family where my parents modeled spiritual intimacy for me. You see, so it's actually, to be honest with you, even when we're talking about this spiritual intimacy and everything like that, it is important. It's such a privilege if we have people that are model this thing for us, because most of the time, all of the things that we are even reading now, most of us do not even have, maybe examples of people that actually did this in our own close space or inner circle. Do you understand? So, but right now we're trying to relearn and unlearn some things so that we can actually begin to start new legacies. You see, starting new legacies for our upcoming generation. Do you get what I mean? So that we can actually live awesome lives and have awesome relationships. So, but the author here is saying that, for example, that at night when I passed by my parents' bedroom where their door was cracked open just a little, she said I would often see them praying together. You see, she grew up with parents that prayed together. That is a big deal. As simple as this looks, it's a big deal. And it's a beautiful model, like a beautiful example for a child to even thrive or for a child to even grow up in. She said that they would share prayer requests, have devotions, read God's word, and just share their thoughts. Look at that environment. Their feelings and the activities of their day. Look at that. They will share together as a couple, and they created, I'm sure that kind of atmosphere is a safe space for the two of them, to thrive in. Many times I would even see them crying together. Wow. We talked about being vulnerable in our relationships yesterday. So he says many times I would even see them crying together. It placed a real hunger in me for that kind of relationship in marriage. Perhaps you were not blessed with that role model. Maybe your husband was brought up in a family where spiritual intimacy was not modeled at all, or they were very private about it. Since it is true that families tend to reproduce themselves, you're going to have to talk this through and not just assume that your spouse understands the importance of sharing. Whoa. Deep. You see, all of these things that we're talking about, it's like a good conversation starter. If you're single, with your significant other person, things like this that you're thinking about, oh my God, it's so deep. It's so deep. And it's a food for thought for everybody, one of us, to think about what kind of relationship do I want to have? What kind of relationship do I want to build for myself in the future? So that's the 5th point, traditions, the barriers to spiritual intimacy, traditions. Then the 6th point is also negative emotions. Negative emotions like fear, discouragement. We talked about fear yesterday. Fear, discouragement, anger. There are so many negative emotions that can be a roadblock to spiritual intimacy. So I'm sure that you can name many more negative emotions. I mentioned fear because a lot of couples are intimidated or embarrassed to pray in front of their spouse. They are intimidated, they are embarrassed to pray in front of their spouse. Why do you think that would be the case? Let's hear your thoughts. Why do you think that some couples might be intimidated or embarrassed to pray in front of their spouse? I'm just thinking. Put it in the comment section if you're watching this. Why do you think that you'd be embarrassed to pray in front of your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your fiance or fiancé? Why? Now I want to ask, especially for men also, for ladies, I think we are kind of, it's like we go in there straight away, we pray, whatever. But for guys, why is it like they're just shy, or it's like a really, really intimate part of them. They don't just want to share that part, so it's like they're a bit embarrassed about it, or I don't really understand why. Please share your thoughts in the comment section. I would really, really like to hear from you, especially if you're a guy. It says here that in addition, there may be times when you feel very discouraged about life and disconnected from God to the point that you don't think that God even cares about you. I have a comment here from Mayam Sukuri. It says, I'm not sure I have seen such before. Okay. Low self-esteem in spiritual things could cause that also. Okay. Why somebody might feel intimidated and embarrassed, to pray in front of their spouse might be as a result of low self-esteem. Probably the lady is more spiritual, which is most times in our generation today, a lot of ladies are kind of really, really spiritually in tune, like they are really, really going far. Since probably the lady is more spiritual, so I perceive that the fear of being judged, of the fear of being like, I'm not up to this, the lady, so, and I don't even want her to know that I can't even pray like her, or probably you feel intimidated. Probably the lady can speak in tongues and you can't speak in tongues, and you be like, I'm not to that level yet. You just feel like, no, this. But you see, I think, well, I don't really know, because I don't know, that can actually happen. But I don't really know why in our generation today, a lot of ladies are much more, when it comes to spiritually, they are much more spiritually, mature. They are more spiritually mature than the guys. By the time you count 5 girls, before you count one guy, it's like you'll have counted 5 girls that you feel like, okay, they are more spiritually sound, but the boys are lacking behind. Why is that? This is a food for thought. Why is that? We need to rise up. I'm challenging the male gender. We need to rise up, the boys, the men, to rise up spiritually, not be slacking behind. Okay, Scripture said there are a lot of reasons in that. Please, can you please share with us why? So a lot of times spiritually, because if the lady is spiritually sound and the guy is not spiritually sound, how are they going to have spiritual intimacy? So if you are producing women or ladies or girls that are spiritually mature, and then the boys are not on that same level, how are they going to merge and work together? So this is a big deal. This is a really, really, really big deal in a big barrier, I would say. A big barrier to spiritual intimacy. So, that is that one. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for that. And let me just continue reading. It says that, in addition, there may be times when you feel very discouraged about life and disconnected from God, to the point that you don't think that God even cares about you. Okay? Anger is another emotional roadblock. It's so hard to pray with your spouse when you are frustrated and angry at him. Yes. Yes. It is so hard. Yeah. It is so hard to pray with your spouse or somebody you're in a relationship with when you are frustrated and angry at the person. You can literally just say, let us pray, whatever, you just say with your mouth. But to be honest with you, to connect spiritually, all of those emotions must be walked through. You must walk through all of them before they can be closeness, oneness, in unity spiritually. That is so true. Successful couples have learned to manage their anger. So in and of itself, anger is not bad, but it's what we do in our anger that really matters. There are 3 recipients of your anger: yourself, your spouse, that's the person you're in a relationship with, and the Lord. So it's very hard to feel safe, be honest, laugh, or pray with someone you're angry with. That's just true. That's where Paul encourages us. He says, be careful to do what is right. Live at peace with everyone. He also wants us, do not take revenge. All of these things we have to walk through if we want to have spiritual intimacy. Now, this thing is not rice and beans. It is a lot of work. It's not rice and beans. It says, do not take revenge. Romans 12 verse 19. Your emotions signal troubled waters and a need for intimacy. But don't let them even be barriers to God together. Acknowledge them and take each one to God. We have talked about 6 barriers to intimacy on today's broadcast. And as I said, it's going to take a lot of work to be able to remove all of these barriers. You can just imagine, we're still going to other ones, but there are lots of barriers that are actually injuring us in our relationships, from having spiritual intimacy. And if we want to work on all of these things, it's going to take a while, working on the word, working on ourselves, working on our emotions, working on our character, working on so many things. And you see, the reason why most times these kind of topics don't take a really front stage because there's just a lot of work to be done, and a lot of people just feel like, man, I have to deal with stress, I have to deal with my time, I have to be thinking about eradicating satanic assault, I have to be selfless, I have to get rid of traditions, I have to manage my negative emotions. I say, who that won't help? Me, I don't get time for that one. I beg. Make I just do it where I go do, just do me. Hey. And then we remain on the same level, no growth in our relationships, no joy in our relationships, no unity, no peace. Peace takes work. Peace takes work. Joy takes work. Building a marriage God's way, building a marriage of joy, like that has joy, peace, love in there. It's not rise and peace. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. So look at part of the work is even showing up for this broadcast. Part of the work is reading this book, walking through it, going to get this book, walking through it, looking at the scriptures, working on yourself. That is the work. But how many people want to do the work? Building our marriages and building our legacy. But it is worth it. It is worth it. I am going to stop here today. Because of our time. And we have a comment here from Mariam Sukri. It says, from my perspective, I have a few. That means we were talking before about the reasons why the male gender might not be at the same level as the female gender when it comes to spiritual maturity. And it says, but because of our time, we can't put it into one of the, we can put it in one of the days we have the Q&A session. Yes. We can. There's a whole lot to really confront and tackle, as regards all of that. So, but we're coming to the end of today's broadcast because I just want to keep it 30 minutes. All of these barriers, spiritual intimacy is what we talk about today. Thank you so much for joining in today. And I hope we have learned something today. We'll go back again, self-evaluate ourselves, become self-aware, start working on ourselves. Because at the end of the day, we need a lot of work to work on ourselves first before we're thinking of the spouse. Work on ourselves first, work through a whole lot of things. And then, the Q&A session, actually, I would let us know when that would be. Probably, maybe I should, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be this Saturday anyways. But I will let us know. And if I say I'm going to continue on Monday at 11 a.m., because many people don't show up for the live session, because people are busy, I can't put the Q&A on that time too. So it's probably going to be on an evening or a weekday, so that many people can join it and then we can talk about, the Q&A session. So thank you so much for joining with episode 7. Thank you, Dami. Thank you. I am Sukre for joining. Enjoy your day and see you in class on Monday, hopefully by God's grace. Have a lovely weekend, everybody. And thank you so much. God bless you. But don't forget to live every moment, laugh every day, and love beyond words. I remain Abiola Ogunwale. Okay? All right. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Bye.